So the problem with that was that it was, it worked, you know? So like me beating myself up did lead to me losing weight, did lead to me making new PRs for like lifting, did lead to better grades. So like when people said awesome job, then it's like, well, I actually not only like allow these demons, but I actually need them. Like they're part of, it's like a performance enhancer almost, you know? But that negative self-talk, I realized also bled into like just relationships and other things too, friendships.
What's going on, Samson Strength Coach Collective listeners? On today's episode, we have physical therapist and strength and conditioning coach Ant Blubello. He is the man, the myth, the legend. I've heard his name many times, so I'm very excited to have you on the show. And thank you so much for coming on, man.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Thank you for having me. You know, we were talking before, but just to see the guys that have been on here before and just to be invited into this is definitely an honor to me. Shout out to Costa for yet another connection, because it sounds like every time I listen to this podcast, his name comes up. I think he's going to try to make this into like a tactical podcast here soon.
There's no choice. Yeah. I mean, he's going to have to start getting kickbacks from me for sure for the amount of guests he's put me on. So shout out to Costa once again.
Once again, man. Once again,
as always. Well, can you just give me a breakdown of your career, where you first started out, what your journey's been, and then what you're currently doing?
Yeah, man, totally. Yeah. So to be honest, my strength and conditioning career started on the opposite end of the spectrum. I was actually a really overweight kid growing up. And there was a moment I remember in 7th grade, I was, I think 240. And there was this girl in the recess yard, and I was trying to talk to this other girl. It's like 13. You're like finally interested in women and whatever. And I'm talking to this girl, and this other girl yells out from the other side of the recess yard, "Rachel, why are you talking to the fat kid?" And I remember being like, man, this is just like such a rejected place, you know? So at that moment, I guess I felt like my value was attached to, you know, my size, right? So started, you know, dialing in the nutrition and running more. I honestly would just run laps around my basement and do a bunch of sit-ups. I had no idea what I was doing. But yeah, I lost a lot of weight and got into basketball just as a way to run around, essentially. And went out for a team, really enjoyed the camaraderie aspect of it. You know, like for a kid who was overweight his whole life to then kind of feel like part of something, I think that was like really uplifting. So I wanted to stay in sports, and I started looking up, you know, what profession could I do that has some kind of, you know, tie to exercise, and found exercise science. I actually went to Westchester University, near Philadelphia. Go Birds. And advisor at the time told me I need to, you know, hey, I don't think you'll have a great chance of doing strength and conditioning for like, you know, big team or anything. So just do a safe bet and do PT. And honestly, I looked up the Eagles like staff. I looked up like, is there a PT on staff, and saw that there was a DPT. So I was like, well, maybe I'll try to see if this is there's a shot to get to the pro level with it. But ended up switching to pre-PT, and there was a exercise science club that I was a part of, and I went to the first meeting, and it was an election meeting. Again, I'm a freshman, and I raised my hand for president just because, again, the person next to me was like, "You should do it." So I became president that day, and was a terrible president.
That's awesome.
Yeah, definitely would not suggest any advisor actually allow that to happen, but I'm thankful that they did, because it changed kind of the course of my time there. There was a kettlebell instructor that we basically brought in just to do like a training, you know, group exercise course with. And he brought a friend of his named Jim Ferris. And Jim's like become a huge mentor of mine, great friend, just great dude all around. And actually, it was funny because I was ready. I had we basically did this meeting, and they're like, hey, do you want to come out for dinner? And I remember being like, I got like literally a full paper to write. Like I procrastinated until the very last minute. We're at 9 p.m. on a Wednesday. Papers due at like 8 on Thursday. And I remember being like, oh, all right, yeah, let's do it. So like went out to dinner with them, and it was the most important probably dinner that I had throughout my college career probably. So I don't remember what the paper was about, but me and Jim have continued to be friends, so I think it was worth it. Well, Jim ended up introducing me to a physical therapist named Bill Hartman. He has tons of amazing resources too. I would check him out online if you haven't. The United Health and Performance Network is where you find him and his model that he's came up with. And again, not can't say enough good things about Bill. And then Bill suggested my name to a strength coach named Mike Potenza. And Mike ended up getting me a job for my first job with special operations in the Air Force. So my first job with the Air Force or special operations in general was with PJs and Crows. And that was just like such a humbling experience. Those guys are, I mean, yeah, just like complete studs, super selfless, really altruistic group, extremely intelligent. Like, they're dangerous humans for sure. And it was such an honor to work with them. Their tagline is that others may live. And I just love that, again, they're doing it for other people. They're putting their livelihood at stake for other people on a daily basis. And so, again, such a cool experience to work with them. Um, and honestly too, like it doesn't fall short on me that they were trusting me with their musculoskeletal injuries and their performance, because that's their means of making, money essentially for their family too. So, definitely took that responsibility seriously, but also like I had no idea what I was doing with the military. It was my first military job. Um, and honestly, it was overseas too. So I'm like trying to figure out language barriers for everything else. I was 27, basically like went overseas with a backpack and a carry on, and they were basically like, you know, this is what you got. I'm like, yeah, I'm just gonna just figure it out as we go. So those guys were super gracious because they continued to educate me on their job responsibilities, on what their day to day looks like, on what the mission looks like, and really kind of brought me in so that I could learn better. And then it kind of snowballed my career from there to be able to better understand what does it take dealing with operators, what is the best way to treat them. So yeah, and I've worked with a couple of other squadrons since then. But the common thread is self-sacrifice. Like working with our military, the people in it, they sacrifice a lot, and yeah, I mean, it's just continues to be such an honor and a privilege to work with them. It's been really cool too because some of them, I keep in touch with. We've become really good friends. I was like best man, or not, not a best man. I was a groomsman in some of their weddings. They were groomsmen in mine. And so, yeah, it was kind of like a brotherhood that has extended beyond just, a patient or a client. It's really, yeah, become a lot more than that, which has been really cool. So hoping to stay in this field kind of going forward. I think it'd be hard to go anywhere else.
No, that's amazing, and I really appreciate the background you give on everything. And it was so funny because I had an intern interview. It was yesterday, and I
Okay.
think I heard. I can't remember who. I originally heard this from, might have been Daniel Roos, but it was like when I interview interns, I try to tell you every single reason why you shouldn't take the job. And then if that
Yeah.
sounds okay with you, then I'll tell you about all the positive stuff. Right.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And so after I told him about, all the negative stuff, he's like, all right, I'm still interested. And so we talked about the positives. And I said, you're going to have people, you're going to meet people throughout your career that are going to end up being groomsmen in your wedding, and people who are going to
Hmm.
become your best friends. And I
Yeah.
told him, 3 of my groomsmen were strength coaches that I worked with, and these
Oh yeah.
relationships you can develop are so special. So I'm glad you had the
Totally.
same experience.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Yeah, I mean, and it's to have even like within staff and stuff, like you said, it's been we're in kind of like an integrated model. So being able to meet other incredible professionals, like you said, has been really an awesome part of it as well.
It's a big perk not many people talk
Yeah,
about, but
yeah,
um,
you're right. You're right.
I'm curious, like, I have a similar story to you. I was a very overweight kid myself.
Okay. Yeah,
My
yeah.
moment of kind of snapping into it was my mom. I played football and I had to stop playing football because of concussions, and so I gained a ton of weight.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
my mom wanted to go zip lining, and I was 280. Like six
Oh
foot,
yeah.
280. And my mom was like, "You have to be 250 to go zip lining. You need to lose 30 pounds in the next 3 months or something." And she was like, "I'll
Dang.
pay you." She's like, "I'll pay you to lose weight." And so literally
Wow, man.
got paid. I
Yeah.
was like, not the most, psychologically healthy way to go about it, but at the end of the day, it worked, and it taught me a
Yeah.
lot. But very similar experience myself of, feeling a little bit isolated, and when
Yeah.
you are young, you don't really know how to detach, like you said, your
Hmm.
self-worth from your physical composition. Like, can you talk to me a little bit more about that experience, because it brings up a lot of emotions for me, so I'm curious to see what you have to say.
Dude, yeah, honestly, and yeah, this is I think something that me and my wife have like, she's been amazing in helping me deal with this, because for years, actually, the weight room became uh, I had a really distorted relationship with it, I think, to be honest with you. I used it as a way to like, and honestly, I would even joke with other like guys I worked with about like, oh, you got to you like fight your demons and whatnot. But dude, it's like when you start really looking at it, those demons follow you. It's like for me, I used the weight room as a place where I would beat myself up and basically say, you're not good enough right now. So you need to like crush yourself to get, better, lose weight or gain muscle. But it even like translated to like grades. Like I would crush myself to stay up, do all nighters, write papers or whatever too, like basically throughout college as well, just thinking you need to do this. Like you're not, making the mark essentially. So, the problem with that was that it was, it worked, So like me beating myself up did lead to me losing weight, did lead to me making new PRs for like lifting, did lead to better grades. So like when people said awesome job, then it's like, well, I actually not only like allow these demons, but I actually need them. Like they're part of, it's like a performance enhancer almost, but that negative self talk, I realized, also bled into like just relationships and other things too, friendships. Like value for me was still like, again, I'm just like beating myself up subconsciously, kind of. So, recently, I remember telling my wife that we were still dating at the time. And, I was also like kind of psychotic in the gym too. Like I was yelling and screaming like curse words and whatnot, again, like really, really fighting those demons. But, she was kind of like, why do you kind of do that? And I remember being like, well, it's a way, basically just saying that it's a way for me to like get the emotions out so that I can be smiley and happy after. Um, and she kind of like challenged me with, you know, what if you frame it instead of that, like, you're capable, like, oh, okay, like it's funny because it's like I'm capable of doing this, even though it's going to be hard. Just changing the mentality of I suck and I need to be better. Like both of them can lead you to hitting a new PR or whatever. But um, the thing that's really like resonated with me was that both of those lead to emotions that are going to carry on with you the rest of the day. So if you like, you tell yourself, if we're both trying to lift 500 pounds and I tell myself I suck and I'm like ripping smelling salts and getting like all hyped up and whatnot. And you can still rip smelling salts and tell yourself that you're capable and able to do this too, but when you leave that bar, those emotions follow, and both can get the same outcome. But I think from a mental health standpoint, it definitely is better to kind of believe, I'm actually able to do this. I can, lift this. I know I can do that. Not to say like just, throw 800 on there and I can just go handle it. But yeah, having that realistic mindset, but also again, like just believing more in the narrative of kind of like a positive psychology and whatnot. So that's been literally, man, that was like, I guess that was 32 when they had that realization. So it's been like kind of 32 years of beating myself up and learning basically to, and there's still times I like catch myself, um, but I think that is like a process, and it's kind of well trained in me now at this point. So I got a lot of detraining to do on it, or, unlearning, I guess. I don't know if that resonates with you at all.
1,000,000%. A
Yeah.
1,000,000%. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I think back to my time when I was doing my master's at Tennessee. And I remember, I was going for a new squat PR.
Yeah.
And I don't even remember doing this, right? Like I hit the squat. I was like, great, did it. Awesome. I had a cantilever belt. So I flipped it open hard, like threw it down. I was like,
Yeah.
hell yeah.
Yeah.
And then one of the guys who was a groomsman in my wedding, Johnny, was like, hey, dude, do you talk to yourself like that every time you lift? And I was like, what do you mean?
Wow.
And
Yeah.
so I literally audibly out loud, like, I mean, I can't even say what I said on this podcast, right? Like
Sure. Yeah.
but it
Yeah.
was the most negative self-talk. It was
Yeah.
like exactly what you're saying. Like, you're a loser. You're never going to hit this weight, and
Hmm.
then that was how I got
Yeah.
myself amped up to be able to do these things because,
Yeah.
again, we had similar background and similar experiences, like you talk about, like, I'm just going to do anything that it takes to lose this weight because I just can't
Hmm.
be like this. Right. Like, so you're
Yep.
running laps around your basement. I remember getting a
Hmm.
sledgehammer and a tire and being out there for like
Yeah.
2 hours. Cause I was like, this is like the only, like, it doesn't matter. Like, I just have to get it done no matter what.
Hmm.
And then I started to hate the weight room, like, because like you
Yeah.
said, those emotions
Yeah.
would stick with me for the rest of the day. So
Yeah.
I'd be all pissed off. And then if I had a bad lift, it'd be way worse. And I'd be miserable to be around for the rest of the day. And it affected my coaching too. I was super, super negative with my athletes, super negative with everybody else I was around. So like I hated the weight room for the longest time. And
Hmm.
then again, it goes back to my master's because it's in sports psych. And so I remember
Hmm.
while I'm going through this process myself, all the teachers are telling us how positive is the way to go. And I'm like, this is lame. I was like, I can't
Yeah.
believe
Yeah.
I'm paying for this master's degree. Like, I can't believe this. And I literally remember
Soft.
one of our professors was like, hey, this is my affirmation. She's like, every day I
Hmm.
give myself an affirmation of I'm a strong, confident, beautiful woman or something. And I was like,
Yeah. Yeah.
like I could
Right.
get a load
Yeah.
of this, right? And like
Yeah.
everybody else is like, Connor, you're an asshole. And so I
Yeah.
had to like kind of learn though that at the end of the day, like you said, if you can be more positive with yourself, it leads to it leads to the same results, but from
Yeah.
a, like you said, PR standpoint or getting work done standpoint. And I think what you say about it still working is so true because I saw results from what I was doing previously.
Hmm.
But then, like you said, there's this emotional weight that you carry for the rest of the day too. And it makes you a person
Yeah.
you don't really want to be around. Like, I wouldn't want to hang out
Yeah.
with myself when I'm like that.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure, man. Yeah. And honestly, I think, the, um, my gains have been like better, and I think it is because like there's a weight to like, the emotional side of that, like carrying that around all the time adds to increased stress and, um, yeah, other issues that are going to impact your lifts, so, I've hit more PRs recently, and that's been, I think, a testament to that, honestly, too. Me and my wife also, like, faith is a big part of our relationship and a big part of our life. And so that's also been another kind of recent turn, is like trying to turn toward strength beyond myself, not focusing on myself quite as much and trying to focus beyond, my own. Um, for me, it's God. I get other people, maybe it wouldn't be, but I think, sometimes it's funny. I think it makes you so inwardly focused that people, at least for me, I viewed it that it wasn't like selfish to feel these feelings. It was almost like cathartic and I'm beating myself up. But by being so self-centered about like beating myself up, I became actually more like internally focused and didn't think about all the other people, you know? Um, so it's just funny, I think, how that works because at least in my mind, I wasn't impacting anyone else. I was being in my own head, but just by being in your own head, you actually are doing just that.
Exactly. And it becomes this kind of vicious cycle where you don't really know where it ends, you know.
Yeah.
I'm glad you brought up the faith aspect because, you know, we've obviously talked a little bit pre-show and I've been able to see some of the things that you do on social media. If I'm correct me if I'm wrong, but you run a Bible study group, correct?
Yeah, man. Yeah. So this is another, just testament of having an amazing wife. I'm really thankful for that. So,
Shout out the wife.
uh, yeah. Yeah. The basically how it started was she wanted to do more Bible studies together. I felt like every time we would do a Bible study, it would become like a 2 hour thing. And I was like, that's great. But we just can't make that sustainable, you know? So, and it probably could have been because I spent 2 hours in the gym. So again, like probably check on myself on where I need to spend my priorities. But, I asked essentially like, can we try to figure out like a regiment that would, kind of allow for smaller bite-sized things. And honestly, I was running a conjugate program at the time. So I was like, what if we did something that was like target focused, and like hard on 2 days of the week, like longer and harder sessions. And then the other days will kind of be like, I don't like, honestly, I didn't like really have a picture for it, but I was just like, the other days would be something else. So where we landed with it was basically we would have two kind of like days in the beginning of the week, your max effort days, essentially. One on an Old Testament reading, the other on a New Testament reading and a Psalm. And then basically the dynamic effort days would be um, a reflection. Basically, how does this reading connect with my life now? So it's basically kind of in my mind. Again, I started trying to blend the worlds of faith and performance and strength coaching, and that, I don't know, it's just where my head landed was your max effort day is going to be the hard day, really digging in. The other day is going to be basically a lot of the same movements, but just basically kind of in a different way. Um, so that's kind of where we landed with it. And, I appreciate you bringing it up. My faith walk is a huge part of my identity, and it's been a huge part of my marriage. And yeah, so this has been a cool kind of side project, one to be able to do a Bible study for me and her together, but it then kind of sparked, well, could we bring this out for other dudes who need basically a way to connect the dots from their faith life to the weight room, because I love both, and how do I like you were saying, how do I take that like angry, like belt flipping, belt slamming, cursing mentality out and like maybe make this a healthy thing too? So that's kind of where we landed with it. We need for sure, definitely some help on it though. So if you're interested, if anyone out there listening is willing to reach out and contact me about trying to either come up with some readings and some workouts, definitely more workouts we need for sure. And it doesn't have to be a conjugate thing. That just kind of was what I came up with for the Bible study in itself. But my hope is to make basically a year of programs, and we have kind of like something laid out on what we've been going through, but we're open to changing that too. So yeah, I appreciate you giving me the platform for it to kind of put it out there, and if anyone is interested, definitely reach out.
No, of course. I think it's such an awesome idea. So do you actually match it with a workout program as well?
Yeah, that was the idea. Honestly, like for what we've been doing, my wife doesn't weightlift at all. She's a ballerina. So like, we haven't been able to do that, but I still run like a conjugate thing if I'm not doing like strongman or any, basically that's like a free time thing too, is like trying to do strongman competitions and whatnot. But if I'm not doing that, I'll just go to a conjugate thing because it's, you know, I'm just comfortable with it and you can kind of make it up on the fly almost. Um, but yeah, that's the kind of the idea, is basically reflecting over some of the ideas that you went over in the Bible and maybe kind of milling that over in the workout too. I know some guys in the military who basically were trying to do like the Bible and barbell type thing. And that was kind of also like where this started, was like, if, at least the branching it out to other people. Because I figure if I made a program that resonated with, you know, just lifters, that it wasn't it could kind of like transcend that with faith and workouts, versus like this kind of like, I don't know, like cookie cutter week type thing where it's just like body weight or something like that. Like I wanted it to be something a little bit more like have actual periodization and have some structure to it. Because honestly, for me too, I think with weightlifting, I'm so regiment on everything. Like it's got to like follow this progression. But then when it comes to like my faith life, it's kind of like, yeah, whenever I'll get around to it. Or so I wanted it to kind of mirror that kind of structure as well.
No, that makes complete sense, and I think a lot of principles with lifting can be applied to everything in life, right? And it's
Yeah,
a regular thing that you need to practice and need to intentionally make time for. And so, having a structure that follows both of those things can make it a lot easier. I'm
totally.
curious, you know. I think having a bigger purpose for everybody is really
Mhm.
important. Like you said, what in whatever context it may be for each individual.
Mhm.
How do you feel like having a larger purpose has helped your coaching?
Yeah. I mean, that's an awesome question, man. I think because honestly, the guys that I work with, there's some, again, kind of come in with this, at least we'll use the PJ example. When I was working with those guys, their like logo is a guardian angel, you know, and like the whole principle of it again is like helping others. So a bunch of guys were really religious and you know, Christian dudes and whatnot, but um you also had others that basically went to this as like a last resort. They just did it because it was hard. So they didn't like believe in, you know, God or anything. But like what was cool, I felt like, was our relationship wasn't like immediately like, oh, this person's not a believer, therefore I can't like connect with them. It actually like helped me grow a lot in my faith by just having conversations with people. But what I've noticed in those guys was, like you said, they still had a why to why did they sign up to become a special operator? And you know, if you like look into what these guys have to do for or what they had to do for like indoc, it was like brutal, man. So like to picture going through all that just because like you know, you didn't want to quit, it's like it sounds like too hard to do that. Some guys made it through literally just because of that. Like they just didn't want the like to have to like ring the bell and like quit in front of other people. But a lot of people like had some like deeper thing inside that really drove them. So for me, you know, at least in this community, I know that everyone has a why. And just like you said, it just comes, it actually then allows me as a coach to get deeper with them pretty quickly, because we can talk about like, hey, so like what made you become a special operator? What made you want to do, you know, I imagine in the sports world, it'd be similar to like what made you want to start playing. And usually there is like a meaning for it. And then when you know that meaning, then you can start talking to them about like, you know, if they start kind of like going sideways on something, it's like, hey, remember, you know, like we talked about this. And honestly, I think it just builds trust too. Like, I don't even know if you have to bring it up again. I think you just like getting to know their why helps you connect at a deeper level, so that then, you know, any advice you give, or if you have to be like a hard coach every once in a while, I think that they'll respect you a lot more.
Yeah, 100%. And I've had many, very, very many conversations along those lines. And, um, it's not like a gotcha card, right? Like you don't pull it out
Right.
like that. Like you said you were doing this, right? Like,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it
Checking people on it.
does.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it does help your conversations though. And it does say like, I've had conversations many times where I'll say, well, you told me you wanted to be drafted into the NBA.
Mhm.
Don't even want to
Yeah.
worry about signing a contract or two-way or anything like that. You want to be drafted. And so the blueprint's laid out for you. There's
Mm.
over 1,000 people who have been through that process before and been
Mm.
drafted. And you can look at what they've done. Do you think your actions align with what you're actually saying here?
Mm.
And, a lot of times I will typically have those conversations with people who are able to recognize that, right?
Yeah.
But the
Yeah. Yeah.
only way you're able to do is by knowing their larger purpose.
Yeah.
And so, again, I think whether it is doing it for faith or doing it for your family, I think at the end of the day,
Mhm.
if you can also tie in, okay, well, you have this goal and ultimately it's via this process of what you mentioned and what's your larger reason, and so why are we
Yeah.
deviating from that reason? And when you have those conversations, I feel like you can really see some of the magic of coaching happen.
Yeah, totally, man. Yeah, because I think coaching in itself is the periodization and whatnot, and exercise selection is important. But the relationship, I'm sure so many people have kind of highlighted that on here. But um, yeah, I think the relationship part is like what makes a coach, actual coach, right?
1,000%, and that's why I like doing this podcast, because I don't like
Yeah.
talking about periodization a lot. I like talking about the art of coaching a lot more, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally, man. Yeah. I mean,
Uh,
yeah, I think that is it's a great way to put it to it, is an art versus just like a format that you can put down and then people get it and you know you just run with it. It usually takes emotional intelligence and understanding people, understanding their background, which is the fun part, I think. Yeah.
Way more fun. I mean, way more fun.
Yeah.
Like, especially when you get to see these people succeed, like that's what makes it
Yeah.
super fun. It's like I'm
Yeah.
never like, when I think back to a time we had a red shirt I worked with who lost 35 pounds and was finally able to play after his first year, and went down and like in the first game had this powerful dunk. Like I wasn't like, man, I'm so glad we hit 5 second eccentric front squats in our summer phase, right? Like it was like, no, I'm so glad we had all these conversations. I'm so glad I got to know this person on a deeper level, because it just means that much more for me to see you succeed.
Yeah. 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 That's amazing. That's really cool. I
Yeah,
really
he's
like, yeah,
he's
thinking
that's
of it
my
in that way.
guy.
That's
That's my
awesome.
guy for sure. Yeah. You mentioned earlier when you were talking about your career, there's a large theme of self-sacrifice. What does that mean
Mm.
to you, and how is that? How have you seen that as a theme?
Yeah, man. Yeah. So, I think when I originally joined, working with the first PJ group that I did, um, the what I envisioned in my head was like Jarhead, like a bunch of like really like intense Marines. Again, I didn't know anything about the military, so like I'm picturing like that kind of like mentality. And I remember getting there, and no one was like that. Everyone was like super like down to earth. They're extremely humble, and I think that was like a cool. It made them people. It made it less of like this stigma of like, oh, you're a soldier, military guy. It became like a person, um, which was a good place to kind of start. Um, but um, but yeah, for them to self-sacrifice or give up the the I would say even like the little things, because I think we may get into these people are sacrificing their life, which is totally a lot of them do. But in this community, there's the day to day. You watch families like they have to travel. So like now you have a mom at home with 4 kids, and that little sacrifice in itself is a lot for the family. So I think for me it was originally like this big like, oh man, these guys are all going to war to like lay down their lives, and again, so many of them do, and unfortunately, some of them don't come home, and that's like a choice. I know they're making, but like even the little stuff of having those inconveniences for your family, missing your, there's a group of guys that I know right now that they're not going to be home for Christmas, so like they're not going to see their 1 year old's first Christmas, or, their son might be coming home from college and he's not able to see his dad. So it's those things that I think are extremely sacrificial for the military members in our country. And for me, that's super inspiring because I get to work with these guys. But it's something that even as I'm getting to work with them, some days I don't consider. So I appreciate you even just asking the question, because it makes me, really think about that again. And that is something that we probably all don't think about enough, is just that our freedom isn't free. It does cost people in their daily lives, and cost families. One group that I worked with, there was tons of um, divorce, and people went through like a lot of hard stuff because of the structure that their lives had to take. So yeah, I mean, it definitely inspires me, and pumps me up on a daily basis. Um, yeah, I hope that answers the question. I'm sorry for being
Yeah, it
long.
does. It certainly does. And I appreciate it because, I think, like you said, it can be, when you go on a day-to-day process, it can be a little easy to kind of forget, again, what's the purpose behind it, and what
Mm,
excites you about the job, and what you can do to help each other out. Like, I'm almost on the flip side working in college athletics. Like, my favorite thing to tell people is like, when I get so amped up, right? We lose a game and I'm like, in my office and going back to that negative place and yelling and doing all this stuff, right? Like,
yeah, yeah, sure,
I have to tell myself, like, it doesn't really matter. Like, yes, we lost
right,
to Georgia Southern. Yes, it's a school rival or whatever, right? But like, this is
sure,
not a life and death scenario. We'll all be here tomorrow. We'll all still have the
sure,
freedom to do the things that we want to do. Like, these things don't really matter. So ultimately, relax, calm down. Like, it's fine. Like, there's
yeah,
not,
sure,
there's always sacrifices with everything that you do, but it's not to the level that other people sacrifice. So I appreciate you
right,
shining a light on that, because it's a good reminder for me as well too, as I go about it. Like, I was upset about certain
sure,
things today too, and it's just like, hey man, take a deep breath. Again, it's not life or death. You're not, you do help change people's lives, but at the end of the day,
yeah.
it is not to the level that other people operate at. So I appreciate the reminder too.
Yeah, 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 definitely, man, definitely.
Yeah. Well, you are in an interesting position where, like you said, you're a physical therapist and you're a strength and conditioning coach. Can you
Mhm.
kind of walk me through how you toe that line? How do you operate with that on a daily basis?
Yeah, totally. And honestly, I've worked with really good strength coaches along the way. So each squadron I worked at, I've had great strength coaches beside me. So it's made it a lot easier, because then we can just kind of, think about, what's this guy limit, what are his limitations, what are his right and left boundaries. We can kind of work together on his programs. But as I guess like my m- mental process, I guess, of going through it, um, we talk about like the spectrum of health and performance. And in this setting, it's kind of interesting, because if you were to take the health side, like full mobility, again, that's kind of where my head goes, at least, is like mobility, even like resting, like heart rate, like chill, parasympathetic. Like these guys can't exist. The guys I work with, at least, can't exist in the health realm. Like the stuff that they do is rucking. They put on like heavy body armor. They put on heavy rucks. They jump out of aircrafts. Um, they carry like litters and patients, and for long periods of time. So like all of those things are going to cost mobility. Like that's going to restrict mobility. So it becomes like a more of a consideration of, I can't get them to 100% health, and even to push performance. If I push it too far, they're like kind of the jack of all trades. So they need to be able to ski, dive, again, parachute jumping, um, ropes and rock climbing. So like they have to be able to do a bunch of things pretty well. But actually, they even, like as a community, don't try to do like just like one thing. Like they try to become the jack of all trades. So for me, I can't really dial in the performance aspect of it, like all the way to the end of the spectrum either, because that's going to probably lead to overtraining and injury because you just can't get good at everything at once. Right. So for me, it's become, I think the past 7 years have really been trying to figure out where am I comfortable, like at what degree of hip internal rotation am I okay with someone still squatting, or like deep squatting at least, or doing cleans, or what degree of shoulder flexion am I comfortable with someone still trying to force into overhead pressing and snatches. And honestly, there's stuff now that like I'll tell the strength coach, the strength coaches that I work with, um, that I'm like, hey, I don't think it's good for so and so to do a snatch because he only has 160 degrees of shoulder flexion. So he's gonna, yeah, he might be able to get the movement, but he's not going to get it from the shoulder joint. He's going to get that from probably his thoracic spine or his neck or his low back. But he's not getting it from the joints that we want him to get it from. So usually guys are pretty understanding about those things too. There is sometimes I'll run into resistance with like using say like a heel wedge or something because it's like I just need to force into the mobility to get better at it. Um, Versus like we're changing the context so that you can do the movement without pain and without restriction. So there's times where we have to maybe have that consideration too, but it's interesting, like you said, being on the PT side of it and also wanting to go into the strength and conditioning side of it at like all times, because I'd much prefer to like, and honestly I really think it kind of can exist in a silo, because every guy that I treat, if I don't know their program, like I don't know how to treat them. They'll come in and they say they have low back pain and it's, right above the right glute. We can do a bunch of special tests, but like if his primary like way of fitness is like biking for, hours on end, then like it might just keep coming back, So, for me, I think that's been really helpful as a practitioner to understand, um, you know, physical demands, the cost of that, what it even feels like. A lot of these guys are meatheads too, which is really great for me because I'm a, meathead and will be probably forever. So like, when they come in with like, you know, hey, like my low back hurts and I can't reach down to put my socks on. And I'm like, yeah, man, I've been there, this is what we'll do for it, So I think it's helped create like a context for me. But it's also, yeah, become a help to be able to understand it so that then I can tell a strength coach who is actually doing all the programming, hey, let's try for more thoracic rotation in his warm up, or let's try for, a hip mobility drill before he does squats. Let's limit, again, shoulder overhead pressing, and let's just stick with like single arm pressing or single arm rows to at least allow for some kind of degree of thoracic rotation. So like all those things have been really helpful um, to kind of shape programs for guys, and also, yeah, shape their rehab program because again, it can't exist in just like the performance spectrum.
I really appreciate that perspective, and I think it just goes into how everybody should operate as a team, right? Like a physical therapist has a specific set of skills, and a strength coach has a specific set of skills. And
Yeah,
so, if you can combine those things and work together, as well as with an athletic trainer, as well as with a sports psych, dietitian, that's why it's a sports performance team. They
totally.
can't just fall down on one person because they don't have the skills to do those things. So, it's very interesting to see the blend of it, and then also somebody who has a lot of skills in both of those areas. It's interesting to hear your perspective on it. With the populations you work with, is there a lot of pumping the brakes on things? Because again, it's self-sacrifice, right? I'm
Yeah.
sure there's an aspect of, I don't really care if this is hurting. I need to get back and I need to
Yeah, man.
continue with my job. Is that something you see a lot?
Yeah, totally, for sure. And honestly, that's like it's a tough way to, well, it creates a tough I guess, problem for me to be able to demonstrate to someone that you shouldn't do something if they've been doing it their entire career for 8 years, you know? So like if some of these guys, I'm like, yeah, your hip internal rotation is 5 degrees. And they're like, yeah, but I was doing all of, you know, the skiing, the rock climbing, the jujitsu, the combatives, you know, like, so, you know, if you're telling like, I've been okay for 8 years and you're telling me that I shouldn't do those things, you know? So like, if that's the starting point, then we're probably going to be on rocky ground, and my words will probably fall short. So yeah, I mean, I think that's, um, I have to basically rely on quantitative measures a lot more, basically to be able to show them, see, like, here's the number, like your right shoulder, you know, external rotators are 20, your left are 10, you know? And so then it's like, oh yeah, I mean, that is pretty big difference, huh? And it's like, yeah, man, like I know you can force past that, but like maybe we shouldn't. There was a recent example of an Achilles tear where the guy, um, he continued to kind of like try to like go faster than the rehab like timeline suggests. And remember him coming in, he was like, hey, like, should I, and we were using like the Alter G, and he was like, should I use the Alter G, or I can probably run like regular, like watch, you know? And he like starts kind of like doing like quick like trot in place, and I'm like, you know, like trying to stop him. But later on, we had a conversation about like, you know, when to progress back to running, and I essentially said, when you can do 3 sets of 10 calf raises without pain, then yeah, then we can like go to unassisted. And he could get maybe like two, you know? So like without, and that like just two. But he was like, but I'm able to run on the Alter G. But I'm like, yeah, man, but you're using like your hip flexor, you're using hamstrings, you're not using your calf to like essentially propel your body forward. So it was like seeing kind of a light bulb click in his mind too, of like, yeah, I get it. That's like probably not smart, because if you're doing like essentially like hundreds of single leg jumps or bounds, you know, over the course of a run, like, and you can't do a single leg calf raise, then that force is coming from somewhere else, right? So, um, usually I have to rely on something like that, like basically create a light bulb moment for them, not be like and that's where the relationship part I think is really important too. Because if I just like come out swinging, like, can you do 3 by 10 calf raises? And he's going to be like, no. And I'm going to be like, okay, then you can't run, you know? And it's, if you hear it as like, me trying to be restrictive versus like, hey man, I just don't want to see you blow the tendon again. Like, I want you to excel and I want you to get back on status as fast as possible. But if we get another Achilles tear, you're going to be set back way worse. So like, usually if people hear that's my, like, where I'm coming from, then they're not like thinking, oh, this dude's just like on a power trip and trying to tell me kind of what to do. Um, that's a good starting point. And then we can use the quantitative test basically to show deficits for them to recognize, okay, this isn't just like in my head, this is an actual thing that I need to get better. And it gives them a target, because when they have a target, they're like indestructible, you know, like they'll find a way to, you know, get their calf strength better. They'll do it at their desk. They'll, you know, do it throughout the day. They're the most compliant group. Usually if they're not getting better, it's my fault. It's not their fault. Outpatient ortho, sometimes I felt like I would give people exercises. They wouldn't do them. They would come in next week and I would say, did you do your exercises? They would say no. And so in my head, I'm like, well, you're not getting better because of your efforts, you know? Here, it's more of a matter of, if they're not getting better, I need to pick better exercises. I need to pick better dosages, because it's not usually them.
Yeah, and again, I really appreciate your perspective on this, because one of the things I've become a little frustrated with is I feel like everybody always just expects, with advancements in science, everything is going to get quicker, right? And
I know.
everybody in
Yeah.
the rehab culture, it's like, oh,
Hmm.
well, you know, ACL people can come back in 8 months now. right? And
Yeah.
then I don't know if you saw the study, but a new one just came out that said basically if you come back before a year, like you're 70% more likely to re-tear your ACL. And so
Right.
everybody expects everything to happen so quickly, and everybody thinks it's
Mhm.
like, well, science is just getting better. We've got all this new technology. Now we've got data trackers and force plates and all these things. And it's just like, no, it's
Yeah.
actually telling us that what we're doing has been correct. And there's a system of how we have to do these things. And there's like you said, there's quantitative numbers that really show us where we need to be. So it's tough to have those conversations, especially with sport coaches, or I don't know, in your realm who that would
Yeah.
be, of who oversees it and is expecting, hey, why isn't this person back yet? When it's like, just so
100%.
you understand, if they come back right now, they could be out for double the amount of time they were out previously, unless, let's
Totally.
just give me another 2-3 weeks, maybe 2-3 months, and then we'll be in a really much better spot.
Yeah. Absolutely, man. Yeah. And that is um, luckily, like the commanders that I've worked with have all been pretty understanding of that and have had a good rap on, um, like the sport performance realm. But I think, you look into the programs that I've worked with are extremely expensive. Like it costs a lot of money to get people, strength coaches, PTs, athletic trainers, all for like a single squadron of special operators. But each special operator in itself is wicked expensive too. So it's kind of like an insurance policy of paying toward trying to have these resources cared for. Well, now if you are not getting people back faster than, say, like you said, take an ACL, and it's like, well, why should we invest then in this other group or this, specific asset if they have to just go by healing timelines anyway? Like they're not going to get better faster. And I think, at least for my own advocation for having these like embedded units, is it is really I think pivotal to be able to speak to the day to day, again, like loads that people are putting on themselves. That guy that I was saying earlier, if not to say like, oh, if I'm not there, he's not gonna like hurt himself. They're studs and they'd probably be resilient too, but um there's a potential that him not having the daily check-ins of like, let's gradually load this, he's going to go back to operator mindset and then push through and then end up, again, setting himself back. So just like you said, this one individual I'm thinking of, that like changes the course of deployments, that changes the course of team dynamics. So it makes a big difference if one guy goes down, for another, like you said, an 8 month to a year rehab. So yeah, I think these programs are valuable in that way, but unfortunately, just like you're saying, ju- we can't expect that just putting more money into these problems will make it any, like, faster. You're taking a gamble on it either way. Like, whether I have dry needling and BFR and ultrasound and shockwave therapy, or all these like gizmos and gadgets, it healing processes are still healing processes. Like the body is what it is, and we can't like just put more money and hacks into it to expect it's going to just like magically heal faster.
Yeah, the body was made a specific way,
Right.
and it's
Yeah.
existed this way for a long time. And just because, like you said, we figured out that infrared light could be good for healing, it doesn't mean that all of a sudden the body's going to figure out how to regrow tendons. Right? Like
Sure. Yeah.
it's a
Yeah.
very, very challenging aspect. Yeah.
Maybe
Well,
one
okay,
day,
so
but yeah.
maybe one day that'd be super cool if we can figure that out. Well, you and I need to get together after this podcast, and we'll figure
uh,
it out. We'll find out the way
yeah.
to
Yeah.
do
Yeah.
it.
Definitely. Well, hopefully,
So
I mean, you have the college kids, man. I don't know if I have
yeah,
the resources like you do over there. They're the
we'll
kids that
see. Who
probably are going to
knows?
be able to figure that out. Yeah.
Yeah, but I'll credit you with it too,
All right.
so
Fair enough.
we can both make some money. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
well, my final question for you, and I always like to end with a more fun question. You know, I remember as a younger chubby kid, I had a very favorite snack, and it was very specific. It was Chuckles. The like these
Nice.
jelly, like terrible. I
Yeah.
don't know. My dad put me onto them, and he was like, "I ate these when I was a kid," and I was like, "Well, these are delicious, and I'm going to eat a million of them." So, what was your favorite snack as a kid?
Bro, this is bad, but do you so Taco Bell used to have these it was like this cheese, like an orange cheese that I don't know what it actually was, but it was labeled as cheese. And I remember I would pour like the whole thing onto a taco and then eat it. And usually my brother wouldn't like his, so I would get his and then pour it on
Yeah.
another taco. and, and then eat that too, bro. I can't imagine how many calories of saturated fat were consumed in that like 5 minute period. But yeah, that
Outrageous. It's outrageous.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. You know, it's funny. So also before I jump off here, I remember you gave Justin Lima a question about worship songs, and
Yeah.
for those who are interested, there's a metal Christian playlist out there,
Boom.
Conjugate Christian. If you put it on, you'll be able to get all the songs that you guys were talking about. Shout out to Justin Lima for
That's awesome.
his viewpoint on that. Yeah.
We're slowly developing a seriously insane faith-based
It's really
playlist
cool,
group.
man.
So I love it. That's awesome.
That's yeah, it's really great. That's amazing. Yeah.
Well, dude, I can't thank you enough. Seriously, I had a lot of fun getting to speak with you and learn from you. If anybody wants to follow up with you, if anybody wants to join the Bible study, or if they want to follow you on
Yeah.
social media, what's the best way to do that?
Yeah, man. If you just do Ant Blubello on Instagram, you'll find me. Just feel free to direct message me there. We can chat about the Christian conjugate or conjugate Christian program, and yeah, kind of go from there.
That's perfect. Well, and thank you so much, man. I really appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for having me, man. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely.